1961, clever reversible cover design for a game with a Cold War theme, very similar in essence and execution to the game Trick Draw, which I reviewed recently. In this game, you're going to play cards and you're going to try to dominate the Cold War in one of three possible ways. Each player will receive a card called the Moonlander. Each player will receive a reference card, very useful. And then you shuffle these cards and you give each player a hand of 2. Also, it can be for quite a number of players, from 2 to 6. And it's highly competitive and very, very mean. So, a turn is pretty simple. You begin your turn by drawing a card, and after that, you must play a card. Each card has 2 different sides. One with a red title, representing an action, and another one with a white title representing a building. Remember, you also have a Moonlander, and at the beginning of the game you receive 3 cards, and you choose one and you place it face down in front of, on top of it, and that represents stacking a card. Now the build counts as stacked for game purposes, which may be referenced in the other cards. So, you start your turn by drawing a card, and then you must play a card. And a card can be played in 3 ways. I think you guessed what those are. You can play a card to the discard pile, in which case you resolve the action, ignore the build, and do what it says. Or you can play a card in front of you with the building side upwards, in which case it counts as you built that building and you ignore the action. Or you can play a card face down, stacking it on an existing building. That's the idea. That's pretty much it. What are you trying to do? There are 3 victory conditions. One is you build 3 embassies, and so you're such a big promoter of world peace. Or you build the Moonlander, which you do if you stack 5 cards on top of it. Or you destroy everybody else. You're the last player standing. To do so, you're gonna nuke them out of existence by playing the action Missile Launch. When you launch a missile, you choose another player. Suppose that this is my situation, and somebody just launched a missile against me. Then I simply remove 1 card from each stack. If I have cards stacked, those go first. If I don't have a card stack on it, then the missile destroys the building itself. If a player has no cards in front of themselves, that is when they're eliminated and out of the game. And you have a couple of little tricks here and there. So there's a response system, which is a card that you may place face down. And if somebody plays a sabotage on it or throws a missile at it, then you return a missile, so you fire it back. A couple other things like that. Embargo that will block the effects of a building. Buildings that have cumulative effects, so if it is stacked, you get an extra non-factory card each turn. That is a card that you get to draw and stack. Things like that. Adjacent non-bunkers do not take damage from missiles, and so on and so forth. So, and you can pause and read some of the effects. Feel free to read upside down, so you get a sense. So, this is the game. Assessment. This is probably one of my least favorite games that I played in a very long time. I'm struggling to find something good about it other than, hey, clever illustration on the box. But my complaints start from the illustrations on the cards that look drab and boring and sad. And on top of just they kind of all look the same, they're also not super functional because with more contrast, I would be able to tell more easily which action is which, what the buildings do. The indications, descriptions on the cards on what things do is not always super clear. You gotta reference the rule book a lot at the beginning. Once you finally know what the effects are and how they interlock, if I do this, that happens. What you have here is a game that still feels vastly random, that ends very anticlimactically. Somebody pulled off a combo and boom, they build the Moonlander super quickly. Or somebody destroys somebody else real quick. It feels that the lack of the draw drives a lot of the action. And another thing is that it's a mean game. It's really mean. Ultimately, destroying the opponent is by far the most tempting option. And I don't mind games that are backstabbing, but I want my backstabbing to have some sophistication, some elegance, some beauty to it. Most importantly, I may backstab you and you may backstab me, and that will decrease my chances of winning. But to me, it's the capital sin of 21st century game design to have direct player elimination, which is precisely what happens here. Unless I'm missing something, it's entirely possible that if you have 3 players and player 1 and player 2 say, hey, why don't we destroy player 3? Player 1 launches a missile, which removes the initial protection from player 3. Player 2 launches another missile, and just that clears every card that the player has before they even get to play a turn. This is not the kind of meanness, that I enjoy in games. And with 6 players, well, I guess 1 and 2 to do it to can do it to 3, and 4 and 5 can do it to 6. And then you gotta have 4 players that are still playing what these 2 poor people never really got to play. This is the cardinal, unforgivable sin of modern game design. You don't do that. At least if you do that, you lost me, and that's what happens here. Essentially, that that hasn't even happened to me, but the possibility that the game is designed around eliminating another player while the other players keep playing, that's not okay. With 2 players is almost more acceptable, but then the game is like super short, super random, and you're just gonna nuke each other. There's really little say incentive to try to build those embassies. We're just going through the deck and trying to get those missiles. It's a lot more profitable. Or those response systems, because again, if I have a response system and that kills you and didn't expect that, I don't feel like it was a super clever play. It just happened that, again, the system handed gameplay to me. So the components are unexciting, gameplay is random, and the wrong kind of meanness to me. And this is my very disappointed assessment of 1961.